Yeah, you can see the name of the video. It's made by the same guy that makes the rest of our videos. But you can go into YouTube and look for voting theory, monotonicity criterion using instant runoff voting. And he has a pretty good explanation on there, better than I can do, on when this thing actually is violated.
All right.
So I'll leave that up here for just a minute for you to be able to read it. And of course, it'll be on the recording too. So. Okay. So kind of rehash criterion for fairness. Number one is majority. You got to get at least more than 50% of the votes. Condorcet is the head-to-head that we did for today's homework. Independence of irrelevant alternatives. If you take out one of the losing candidates and it doesn't change the outcome of the election, that means that that alternative was irrelevant to the election. It didn't have any effect. And then the monotonicity. If candidate wins and voters change to support that candidate and it still wins, that's good. If it doesn't, then then the monotonicity is violated. And again, we've got the YouTube videos right up here that does a pretty good job of explaining that. So I also added into this little document that I had is which fairness criterion is going to be always met by a particular voting method. So if you look at majority, the majority will always be satisfied in the plurality with elimination, and the pairwise comparisons, which we have not done pairwise comparison yet. We'll do that in a few minutes.
Okay.
But the Borda count may or may not satisfy the majority criterion. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't.
Okay.
And we're going to do Borda count too. We still have to do those two. And then you can see Condorcet is not always satisfied by plurality, Borda count, plurality with elimination, but it is always by pairwise comparison, because pairwise comparison is basically a modification of the Condorcet. So it's very similar to it.
Okay.
And then irrelevant alternatives are never satisfied. So you can always have irrelevant alternatives no matter how you vote. And then with the plurality, the Borda count, and pairwise comparison, you will always satisfy monotonicity. The only time you may not is the plurality with elimination, which makes sense because as you cross one candidate off the preference schedule or the preference list, then another candidate may come to the top and beat the original candidate. So really, that's the only time you have to worry about monotonicity with elimination. So does that kind of help sort of summarize how some of this fits together?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And I just need to mention Arrow's impossibility theorem. Basically, it says if there's more than two choices in a voting method, no voting method will satisfy all fairness criteria. So if there's three or more choices, one voting method is going to violate it one way or the other.
Okay.
So you may want to keep this little sheet handy. It's really a summary. It kind of helps you see how things are going and where we're heading with things when we have the test, which is coming up very soon. And unfortunately, most of the class is not. Miss out on the Borda count, pairwise comparison, and approval voting. Okay. So I think the best way really to go over these other types, I'm going to actually open up the homework assignment. I think that would be the easiest way for me to share this with you if I could figure out where my minimum button is. There it is. And we will just go through an example of each, and I think that will help you understand how these things all work.
Okay.
Okay. So for the board account, that's the first one. I'll go ahead and write down the table here. We have the voters, same old table, right?
Mm-hmm.
14, 13, and 8. First, second, and third. And you have ABC, BAC, and CBA. So with just an ordinary plurality kind of vote, you can see that C would win this one, right? Because it has 18 as opposed to the others. Okay. And if we did a plurality with elimination, we'd wipe out the B, which would actually put A into the majority, wouldn't it?
Yes.
So plurality by elimination would give you A. Well, there is another method called the Borda count, B-O-R-D-A count. And what this does, this ranks the votes for each candidate and gives points. And typically the last place is going to be 1 point. And second to last is 2, and so on until you get to the top. So first place is worth more points than last place.
Okay.
Okay. And you know, I'm writing all this down, and I don't have my ladybug up. I thought I did. Get the ladybug back in there. Okay, sorry about that. You should have said that I was saying things and you weren't able to see what I was saying.
So,
It's my bad. I don't want you to be lost. So when we do this, we're going to look at the point values for each of these candidates.
okay.
So for candidate A, since there's 3 places, the top place is going to be 3 points. In fact, I'm going to write that on my list, 3 points. Second place is 2 points. And third place is 1 point.
Okay.
So if we look at candidate A, it has 14 times 3 points, right? Because there was 14 voters who gave it 3 points.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was 13 voters that gave it 2 points because it finished second in the next group.
Mm-hmm.
And 18 gave it 1 point. So let's see, 14 times 3, if I remember, it's 52, isn't it? 42.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
42 plus 13 times 2 is 26. Plus 18 times 1 is 18. That gives a total board count of 86.
86.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now we're going to do this. So how many points did B get in the first column?
14.
And how many points were each of those 14 worth?
2 points.
Perfect. 2 times 2. And then the next one is 13 times Perfect. 18 times.
2.
Yep. So it gives us 28, 39, and 36, right?
Mm-hmm.
103 points.
3.
And we'll do the same thing with C.
Okay. So that'd be 14 times 1.
Good.
And then 13 times 1.
Mm-hmm.
And then 18 times 3.
Perfect.
To equal to 81.
So based on that, who do you think would be the
It'd be B.
perfect? And that's your board count.
Okay.
Okay, that's all there is to board count. Really, as long as you don't have too many candidates, if you had 7 candidates, this would take a long time to do.
Yeah, I was about to say it doesn't seem that bad, but
It's
there's
really
like a whole lot more.
pretty straightforward. It's not too bad. The board count is relatively easy.
Yeah.
Okay. Alrighty, so let's see if I can get into the next one. So that takes care of board account, and there's a number of those in the homework. And this, well, I'm not going to go through that one. That's the board account. Yeah. Under approval voting. I wanted to actually do the other one first. We'll come back to approval voting.
Okay.
There's some more little criterion questions. There we go. Pairwise comparison. That's what I was looking for. Now, pairwise comparison works kind of like a hybrid between board account and plurality by elimination, I guess you would say. Let me get over here to the right screen. There we go. This time I'm going to make sure it's open. I'll raise this up a little so I can see more of the page. Come here, paper. There it is. Okay. Again, we have another vote. This time we got 4 choices. 1, 2, 3, 4 choices. And we had 8, 5, 11, and 14 votes. It was BCDA and DBAC and CDAD and ABCD. So usual preference schedule, same kind of thing. Now, with this head-to-head voting method and Copeland or pairwise comparison, which is also known as the Copeland, they're the same thing. Pairwise
Okay.
or Copeland. The way this one works is it's kind of like the Condorcet criteria where you match everything head to head and you see who wins that way. But what's different on this one is when you do your head-to-head comparison, the winner of each head-to-head gets 1 point.
Okay.
Ties give a half point apiece. The loser gets no. Is that still readable for you?
Yeah, I can still see it.
Okay. Head-to-head comparison. So we need to make a list of all the possible pairs. So it's kind of like what we did with the condensate. You got A to B, A to C, A to D, B to, let's see, A to B, and that would be B to C, B to D, and C to D. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to do the same thing that we did with the condensate. First one. And if you look, B wins the first matchup, right?
Mm-hmm.
So B gets 8 votes. And if we look at the second one with 5 votes, looks like B won again, so B gets 5 votes for that one. And when we get to the column with 11, looks like A wins, so A gets 11. And in the last column between A and B, A gets 14. So that'd be what, 25 and 13. Okay, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that tells you that A gets 1 point. So I'm going to put a 1 point out in front of the A.
Okay.
Now we do the same thing with A and C. So A, we got C. So in the first column, C beats A, so C gets 8. In the second
Next
column,
one.
right, very good. So A gets the 5. That's perfect. Sounds like you got it.
Yeah. And the next one, C wins. He wins.
So did we have a winner in A to C?
We have a tie, right?
We sure do. So that means each one gets a half. So I'm going to put a half by each one of these.
Okay.
And then we do A to D.
D wins. And D wins that one, gets a point, right?
Yes, it does. That's perfect.
Okay.
Okay, so now
I
we
just
just
make sure
finish
I'm
up
still doing it right.
Yep, you're doing it perfectly.
Okay.
So now we're going to do B to C and B to D and C to D.
Okay. Okay. All right, I got exactly what you got.
Excellent. Okay, so all we got to do is add up the totals for all of them. For A, B, C, and D. So if I look up the points that A got, looks like A has about 1.5, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and B has 2. Yep, C has 1.5.
D has 1.
And D. So the winner of the overall vote is B, using the Copeland method.
Okay. That wasn't too bad.
No, it's just time consuming.
Yeah.
That's really the bad part of it. It just takes time to do it. And of course, with this one, it's going to have to win the Condor set, isn't it? The Condor set will always apply
Mm-hmm.
with pairwise comparison. Because, I mean, that's basically what we just did, is a Condor set comparison. Okay, so far so good. All right. And the last method we're going to go over then is approval voting. Now, approval voting is totally different kind of creature.
Okay.
Now, if approval voting, as opposed to voting, one candidate is the only one you're going to accept. Approval voting is you give approval for as many candidates as you want. And they are unranked. And what I mean by that is, let's say you're choosing, I don't know, a wedding cake, and you got a choice between strawberry, yellow cake, cheesecake, and chocolate cake. And you say, well,
Mm-hmm.
I definitely don't want cheesecake and I definitely don't want yellow cake, but I'll give my approval on both the chocolate and the cheesecake. So for
Okay.
your vote, you would have approval of chocolate and cheesecake, but you would not give a vote for the other two.
Okay.
Does that make sense? What I'm trying to say there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let me get to, if I can find my mouse here. We'll go back to some approval votes. And do we want to do a generic one or you want to do one with context?
Let's do one with context.
So we'll do, this is question number 8 on the homework. You got number of voters. Okay. So the table is set up basically the same way, but now instead of first, second, third, fourth choices, you got Billie Jean King, Peekaboo Street, Suze Orman, and Ellie Weisel. I assume they're tennis players because I know Billie Jean King. So it's 25, 28, 26, 26, and 27. Woo, about to squish my rows together there. Okay, so basically what we found in this first column, these first 25 people. I did it again. Let me get my ladybug back up. All right, if my ladybug didn't show up.
Okay.
Okay, so in this first column, if you look at the table, it says that the voters did not want Billie Jean King. No matter what they did not want her. But they were okay with the other three, so they gave their approval for Peekaboo Street, Suze Orman, and Ellie Weisel. Okay. In the next category, the 28 people who all voted the same there, they liked Billie Jean King and they liked Suze Orman, but they couldn't stand Peekaboo Street or Ellie Weisel. And the next category is exactly the same. Why they broke it out into two separate groups, I'm not sure. Maybe that was classes or something. 28 people in class, 26. I get it. Okay. Billie Jean King and Ellie Weisel, but not the other two. And then Peekaboo Street won the other two, and Ellie got 25 votes as well. Okay, so this is really just a matter of, it's a simple count. How many people approved of each of the different characters? So Billie Jean King, let's see, she didn't get the 25, but she got 28, 26, and 26. Whatever that comes out to be, that'd be 52 and 28 would be 80, I think.
Yeah, that's what I got too.
Okay, got 80 votes. Peekaboo Street, 25, 25, and 27. That should be 77. Okay. And Suze Orman got 25, 28, and 26. That'd be 51. That'd be, what, 77 as well? Can't do that with my head for some reason.
I got 79.
Yep, 79. And Ellie Weisel plus 26 plus 25, which is 76. Okay, so who does it look like won?
Billie Jean.
Billie Jean King. The old tennis pro should have won that one. And voila, she did. Okay, this would have been more fun if
That one didn't say bad either.
No, really, none of the methods are really hard. Some of them are a little bit time consuming, but they're really not difficult. I think probably the most confusing one is the condor set when you first see it, because you've never done anything like that before usually. And then the plurality by elimination, where you have to eliminate different categories and do that. That makes it a little more challenging.
Yeah.
But that's really what I had for today's new material. Like I said, I had a nice little project y'all could have worked on, come up with something to vote on and everything. But since it was just you, that would have been kind of time consuming with a little game. But I'm glad you came in the class. Well, I know Mima is sick. She emailed and said she was sick today and couldn't make it. And then I had another one who had to work. Apparently, their delivery truck finally got there. They've been waiting on it for a while, so she was going to have to unload. And a minute in the 146 workshop, and I sent a chat to him and said, "Hey, I'm having problems with my sound. I'll be back in a minute." When I got back, he'd already taken off, and he hasn't been back since. But the rest of them, I have no clue.
Yeah. My internet at home, sometimes it'll kick in and out, and sometimes whenever it kicks out, it won't come back on for like 3 or 4 hours.